What has been the most rewarding moment of my career? Well, I have to say the most rewarding experience has been just the past year plus since my last book, Beautiful Souls, came out, to have an audience, to be able to go to different parts of the country and talk about the book, both university campuses like Brown and Jewish community centers and places like UC Berkeley's journalism school, where I spoke at the commencement last year. It's just been a thrill to, writers kind of joke that the period before your book comes out is the calm before the calm, rather than the calm before the storm. And I'm glad that there was a little bit of a storm, enough that it's enabled me to go around and engage audiences about the subjects I wrote about. The best career advice I've received is that you should base your career decision and your choice of what you end up doing not on your evaluation of whether you're talented enough to do it, but on whether you feel a true passion and hunger to do it. For myself, I can very honestly say that I know many more talented writers than myself, who have been friends or just people I met along the way, who didn't necessarily go on to become writers and journalists. And that wasn't because they couldn't do it, obviously. It was because maybe they weren't that passionate about it. And I think for myself, once I realized this is what I loved to do, that became the most important thing. And I think that for people out there considering journalism, even print journalism, which seems to be in the throes of transition and indeed is, if you really love it, if you really have a hunger to do it and to connect that way and express yourself that way, that's the most important thing. Although I wrote a book about, in a sense, whistleblowers and people who, when they're exposed to wrongdoing in the workplace, speak up about it, I don't really have a prescription in terms of, this is how one should go about finding that. I don't really feel equipped to know that. I will say, though, that one sort of starting point for anyone, no matter where you work, is to know that it can indeed happen here. That sort of ethical and other sort of scandals don't just take place in other countries where there's corruption and maybe less democratic rules and norms and so forth. If we've learned anything in the last few years in this country, from the financial crash on down to scandals in places like Penn State, it's that we are not immune to blindness when scandals erupt right in our own communities and workplaces. What I'd like to say to young people, graduates and others sort of heading out into the workforce now is that on one level I really feel for everyone who's doing that, because the economic climate is not great. On the other hand, I think the fact that you're entering that with the skills and tools that a Brown education affords, I hope leads people to pursue work that has meaningful social benefits for others and not just meaningful monetary rewards for oneself. There are too many Americans who I think veer in the latter direction, and to me, it's obviously an enormous privilege to be able to choose that other route, but I think it's also, in a sense, a responsibility. We can't have a decent society if everyone's just chasing money all the time and the highest paid one.